The Bronze Age began in the ancient Near East, which is the historical region comprising much of Western Asia and the Eastern Mediterranean. Mesopotamia, meaning the land between the two rivers, referring to the Tigris and Euphrates, saw the rise of the first known major civilization, Sumer. The Sumerians' rapid development was greatly aided by the innovation of bronze melting technology. Early forms of bronze were smelted with arsenic, which had the nasty side effect of fatally poisoning those involved in its production and handling. The Great Bronze Leap Forward occurred when an alloy of copper and tin was discovered to produce the vital metal in a less toxic manner. Bronze was stronger, far more durable, and useful than the copper and stone tools previously used. Bronze provided superior weapons for hunting and war, as well as tools for construction and agriculture, which led to far greater crop yields and population growth. So much food was produced that many people were freed up to pursue more specialized occupations. Artisans, craftsmen, and construction workers built and beautified the Earth's first true cities, with tens of thousands of people inhabiting them. Writing, the wheel, mathematics, and many more innovations occurred in these cities. The Sumerian cities of southern Mesopotamia, their ruins, now located far from the modern coastline, which has continually silted out to sea, were in their heyday strategically located to control the trade flowing through the region's vast river systems and the Persian Gulf. In northeast Africa, even before the introduction of bronze technology, the fertile Nile River Valley was a cradle of early civilization, where the pre-dynastic kingdoms of Upper and Lower Egypt formed. These were named after the direction the Nile River flows. Following the unification of these kingdoms into a single state, bronze was introduced to Egypt. Goods were traded from Mesopotamia to Egypt through intermediary states that developed in the Levant, which is the eastern Mediterranean coast between Egypt and Anatolia, which is modern-day Turkey. Over time, these states in the Levant grew to become wealthy middlemen in the bronze trade. The river valleys of Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Levant have together been called the Fertile Crescent, as well as the cradle of civilization, because of the technologies that rapidly developed in the region. The Kingdom of Egypt had access to vast quantities of gold from Upper Egypt, which is located in the south of Egypt, as well as large quantities of copper from mines in the Sinai Peninsula, and later through trade with the Kingdom of Wallachia on the island of Cyprus. Because Egypt only had plentiful access to one of the two necessary ingredients to create bronze, copper tools were widely used, especially during Egypt's earlier dynasties. Although much less tin is required to create bronze, it was far less plentiful. The river valleys of the Fertile Crescent, as the name implies, had the best farmland in the Near East, but they lacked the necessary components to produce bronze. This necessitated the development of the first long-distance trade routes, international diplomacy, and contracts, which were all facilitated by the written word. The nearest plentiful supplies of tin were found on the Iranian plateau. Along with Egypt and Sumer, another Copper Age civilization that rapidly developed and flourished in the early Bronze Age was Elam. Elamite civilization was centered around the city of Susa, nestled in the foothills of the Zagros mountain range, which looms over Mesopotamia. The Elamites benefited from their greater access to tin. The first recorded war in history took place around 2700 BC, fought between the city-states of Sumer, led by the king of Kish, and Elam. The Sumerians won the war, and recorded that they carried away the spoils and weapons of Elam. But that was the first of many wars, and Elam would outlive Sumer. For more than 1,000 years, Elam remained an ever-present threat to the civilizations of Mesopotamia. The Sumerians were first subdued by the Akkadians to their north. Sargon of Akkad is often considered to have established history's first empire, as the Akkadians ruled over peoples who spoke different languages and practiced different cultures. It should be noted that there are other short-lived earlier Sumerian claimants to being the first empire. After approximately 180 years of rule, the Akkadians were conquered by the Gutians from the Zagros Mountains. The Gutians are the earliest example of the barbarian archetype, coming in to destroy civilization, only to adopt the culture of the conquered peoples. Just as the Germanic tribes, who adopted many aspects of Roman culture during the fall of the Roman Empire 2,500 years later, the Gutians were driven out by a resurgent Sumer, led by the third dynasty of Ur, which established the Neo Sumerian Empire. They subdued Elam, and their influence spread to the coast of the Mediterranean Sea at the height of their power. The Neo Sumerian Empire was overrun by a new group of people who they described as the typical barbarian, who ate raw meat, didn't build buildings, farm, or bury their dead. They were the Amorites. In time, they would be considered the most civilized and prestigious of peoples. The hardy Amorites originated somewhere around the deserts and highlands of what is now Syria. The Sumerians recorded that they built a wall to keep the Amorites out somewhere in northern Mesopotamia, but the Amorites appear to have found a way around or through it. Nearly all of the cities of Mesopotamia and the northern Levant were conquered or usurped by the Amorites, who established royal dynasties and adopted the local urban culture. The Assyrians of northern Mesopotamia, who claimed descent from the Akkadians, established a short-lived empire under the leadership of Shamshi-Adad, likely an Amorite, and definitely a humble man, who declared himself king of the universe. His empire was superseded by another Amorite, Hammurabi, famous for his surviving law code. He established Babylon as a formidable power and cultural center. On the island of Crete, the Minoan civilization, which began to flourish around 2700 BC, was devastated by a volcanic eruption on the island of Thera, which is now called Santorini. Based on archaeological remains found on the surviving portion of the island, it appears to have been a major urbanized economic hub for the Minoans. The Minoans have been described as a thalassocracy, which dominated the islands and land around the Aegean Sea. After the eruption on Thera, the Mycenaeans of mainland Greece supplanted the Minoans as the major power in the Aegean. Their major competitor was the city now identified as Troy, which became wealthy, controlling trade flowing through the Hellespont between the Aegean and Black Seas. The Mycenaeans are believed to have been a loose confederation of states, based around fortified palace and administrative complexes. In contrast to the other great contemporary civilizations of their day, which formed around fertile river valleys, which geographically united them to a certain extent, the Mycenaeans were divided by mountains, making central rule far more difficult. Like the Minoans, the Mycenaeans traded with Anatolia, the coastal cities of the Levant, and Egypt. Their principal export was olive oil, which was a multi-purpose product in high demand. Another scarce vital resource, desired by all major powers in the Fertile Crescent, was wood. The only substantial supply located in the region were the now vanished forests in what is now Lebanon. This required wood to be imported from further afield. Vast quantities of lumber were harvested and exported from Anatolia. Around the Kizil-Irmak River, two peoples, the Hattians and the Neshites, combined to become the Hittites. They consolidated power in the region, expanded their territory, and became wealthy through trade. In 1595 BC, the Hittites shocked the Bronze Age world when their king Mursili and his army marched over 2,000 kilometers and destroyed the Amorite kingdom of Yamhad and sacked Babylon. They carried off the city's great wealth and thousands of slaves. The Hittites' campaign was not one of conquest, but of plunder on a massive scale. Mesopotamia was devastated, leaving a power vacuum. The Hurrians and the Kassites were two tribal mountain peoples who took notice of this and moved in to fill the void. The Kassites rebuilt Babylon and adopted much of its culture and former territory in southern Mesopotamia, while the Hurrians in the north formed several small squabbling kingdoms. By the end of the 16th century BC, these coalesced into the Mitanni Empire. In Egypt, the Hyksos, a people generally believed to have been of mixed Levantine origin, usurped power there. They founded their own dynasty, which controlled the Nile Delta for a century. A native Egyptian dynasty survived at the city of Thebes and was a Hyksos vassal for a time. Around 1550 BC, they were able to decisively defeat and drive out the Hyksos from Egypt. The new kingdom Egyptian Empire expanded to control the entire Levant, bringing them into contact with the Mitanni. After many years of waging war, with one side gaining the upper hand and then the other, the Mitanni Empire and Egypt entered into a long-term alliance. This alliance was sealed and renewed by a series of marriages between the daughter of a Mitanni great king and an Egyptian pharaoh. This was a high point of peace and prosperity in the Bronze Age Near East, before things took a turn for the worst. A great video on the rise and fall of the Bronze Age is available from this video's sponsor, CuriosityStream, a subscription-based streaming service with thousands of documentaries and nonfiction titles. Just like other streaming services, you can watch CuriosityStream on all your devices. But in contrast to those, you could enjoy CuriosityStream's vast library of content for just $2.99 a month, or for $20 a year. That works out to less than $2 per month. Here are a bunch of documentaries on DVD I purchased years ago. After I got my first job, the majority of these I paid over $20 for a single documentary. And for my viewers, go to CuriosityStream/EPI and enter the promo code EPI during signup, and you will get your first 30 days for free. So, go click the link in the description. To watch the documentary I really enjoyed on the Bronze Age, and many more. During the reign of the Pharaoh Akhenaton, Egypt was plunged into internal turmoil, as he abolished the Egyptian pantheon of gods and moved the capital city. Taking advantage of this, the Hittites and the Assyrians, who were vassals of the Mitanni, both attacked and then divided the Mitanni Empire, initially into puppet states, which were later abolished and absorbed. Egypt recovered from its period of weakness, and then waged war against the invading Hittites. They clashed at the Battle of Kadesh, the earliest recorded account of a battle in history. Both sides claimed victory, and later signed a peace treaty with each other. Assyria maintained an aggressive foreign policy, attacking the Hittites. All major powers of the Near East then enacted an embargo against them to halt their expansion. This was the state of the world when the Bronze Age collapsed. Famine, pestilence, and a host of other maladies afflicted the Bronze Age world, including the mysterious band of marauders known as the Sea People.
Nobody expects the Sea People.
The Mycenaeans, Hittites, Cilicia, and many of the city-states of the Levant and Kassite Babylon did not survive. And those that did so in a diminished fashion. A big thanks to my patrons over on Patreon, who help with the cost of running this channel. This has been Epimetheus. Thank you so much for watching.